Today's guest is artist, photographer, and musician with nick tych0. Am I right, or maybe I pronounce the wrong way?
The name that I was trying to go for with the title was Tycho. So
Tycho.
Tycho. Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah. You can call me Ryan if that's easier as well. That's my name. So.
Okay.
Or Tycho, whatever's easier for you.
Mm-hmm. He draws both with oil paints and in digital. What is your way of becoming an artist? So maybe the full answer is much appreciated, because every beginner will compare his or her artistic way, and it is very interesting how you became who you are now.
Sure. Well, I suppose that my path to being an artist, I guess, is very multifaceted. I took a lot of different routes, and I continue to try to work with a lot of different mediums. My entry into, I guess, the art world started very young when I was a kid. I started taking just sketching courses at a local community just center near my home, and they had little free courses where they had local artists come in and they would teach students just very simple pencil and paper, and all we would do is we would go out and walk into the woods and sit down somewhere, if it was next to a stump or if it was a little river, and it became, all right, everybody, let's just sketch the stump or sketch the river. And that worked very well for me, I found, just because I have always been very interested in nature in general. I enjoy going out and being in the woods or going out and swimming. I spent a lot of my time growing up doing a lot of those sorts of things, lots of hiking, and I find nature very beautiful and inspiring. So that was a very easy transition for me to try to take what I was seeing and appreciating walking around and try to put it down on a piece of paper and bring it back home. And I gained a lot of satisfaction in just seeing over time those images becoming more and more representative of what I was seeing and what I was feeling at the time. And just to talk to the idea of beginner, referencing someone who may be a little bit further along, and I don't consider myself an amazing artist by any means, so I don't want to say that you can one day aspire to draw like me, but it's a learning process, and it takes a lot of time, and you'll make things that you don't like and you think are terrible, and you'll pull them out 5 years later and look at it and go, wow, I've not only made a lot of progress, but I can see little bits and elements of what I was doing before that I still use. And it's, you learn to build on those, and that's how you create your own style, and learn from others too. Like, look at others. It's why I'm also excited to just be on here and talk to you guys. I think it's important for people to share what they're doing and what inspires them as well. So I'm still learning. I'm still trying new things. I play the cello. I paint. I'll draw. I've taken a shot at whittling wood with a knife and trying that, but I cut myself too many times, so I'm going to put that one on hold for a while. I think it's just if making things, whether it's art or if you enjoy just creating something and it gives you some satisfaction, just continue with it, and it'll develop into your own kind of style and part of you as time goes on. So I guess that talks to kind of how I got here and how I'm continuing on that path.
I saw your last post on the Hive with beautiful nature photos. Where do you live?
I live in the United States, and I live in the state of Michigan. It's located in the very center of the country, but to the north. If you look on a map, there's where the Great Lakes, or what they're called. There's 5 large, just freshwater lakes in the center of the continent there, and I'm situated in one of the states that's bordered by a few of them. So we have some bits of old forests, boreal evergreen forests that are left, and I love nature, and I want to try to document it as I can. A lot of the area around here has been cut down to make farmland over the last 100 years or so, and I enjoy getting out away from all the cornfields and just monotonous flat land and get into the forest a little bit. It's a relief for me. So yeah, and it doesn't hurt to share some of those photos to the people that can't get out there as well. So
yeah, nature is very inspiring. By the way, I have friend from Michigan, from city Monroe.
Monroe in Michigan. I know Monroe, Wisconsin, which is very near here as well. I don't know Monroe, Michigan. Though. It could very well be a city here, and I'm just not aware of it. But yeah.
I want to ask you, what inspires and motivates you, maybe several artists?
Well, I mentioned before that I play the cello, and that's really the art form that I've devoted the most time to, and most of my creative efforts, I suppose. I've devoted quite a bit to visual arts as well, but in terms of sheer time and practice, a lot. And in artists inspiring me, most of them actually are musicians. A few musicians that are really inspiring to me are Rostropovich. He's a Russian cellist. I think he is absolutely an exemplar of just positive and just vigorous love for an art form, just dedicated his life and passion to teaching others and sharing music. He debuted countless pieces, and he was a cultural bridge between the Soviet Union and the United States for years during the Cold War. And his music I listen to today, and I still find it absolutely amazing how powerful and expressive he is. So he's a massive inspiration for me. Another cellist is Jacqueline Dupre. She was a young British cellist who, unfortunately, she passed away fairly young, but she left an amazing body of work, just an incredibly expressive performer. In terms of actual visual artists, I like the work of a man named Henry Darger. He's credited with kind of pioneering unintentionally a form of artwork called outsider artwork. And I feel like it overlaps quite well with the whole NFT universe as well. It's kind of a group of, or a style of art that's kind of characterized by people without real professional training. His mode of creating art was just clipping pictures out of magazines, and he would just trace over them and plop them into these massive works of art that he would paste together. And these were all these private things that he just made for himself, and he never intended on selling it or anything. And it was all found after his death. And I find that kind of inspiring, that he put all this effort and time into creating all these beautiful worlds, and it was never meant to be even seen. It was kind of interesting that this man who had no training in any way was able to make such deep and worlds with his art. So I find that interesting, inspiring, because I also don't have any real professional training in the arts. I had training playing cello, but when it comes to, and I had those sketching courses as a kid, but everything else is just trial and error. And if I like it, I keep it. And if I don't like it, I set it aside for later. So those are a few artists that I try to pull from.
So you have classical music education? Yes,
I didn't ever go to school for it or anything like that. I didn't major for it in a university setting, but I played from the age of I believe I started either 11 or 12, and I've been playing since then. I'm 24 now at this point, so a little over a decade. But I played with a few small youth orchestras growing up, and I also was a solo cellist, and I took private lessons, and so I like to think that I'm fairly good, but I'm probably not a professional level, or I wouldn't be able to stand up to somebody who's at a Juilliard or some academy, but I'm good enough to hold my own, and I can perform quite a few pieces, and I do it mostly for fun, and it's another form of expression for me, just like the rest of the artwork. So
very interesting for me because I play on classic guitar, classical music, but now I play on electric guitar, jazz.
Right. Yeah, I was actually looking into to see what an electric cello would sound like. I'm not sure if I if I need to get that, but yeah, very cool.
How do you think are nature and music important for artists does it develops ourselves, and is it necessary even to learn music or any musical instrument, and to be a part of nature, to live near the forests like you, or to attend national parks, squares? Is it important in our today's artist's life?
I don't know if it's necessary to create artwork or create something like a physical or musical piece to necessarily express yourself in the same way. I feel like a lot of what I personally and what I believe a lot of other people gain from the creation of the artwork is more of expressing whatever kind of existence represents how they are at that time, and people can find a lot of different ways to achieve that same expression. And I think a lot of artists create art because they enjoy it as well. And I know plenty of people that do not enjoy creating art. I have family members that are computer programmers, and they love math, and they see all this beauty and formula and in mathematics, and I just don't see it. I appreciate that they do, and I'm glad they do, and we need people like that. But I think you need the artists as well. I just think it's more important that people find that thing that it feels natural to them and they enjoy and they see beauty in, and that they can feel like they're contributing to in some way by using it and making something with it. But I don't know if it needs to be artwork or if it needs to be you going out into nature necessarily. I think that those can be really effective ways that work for a lot of people, but it's not the one solution to it. I think there are a lot of different ways that people can do that, and it's kind of on you to figure out what works for you. So if my pictures on peat of the forest strike some note with you, and you think, wow, I would love to actually see that in person, then find a national park near you and go out. And if you get a similar feeling when you're there, then that's a start. You can work with that. But I think it's more of identifying with yourself what you enjoy and then moving from there to see what's necessary for you, rather than taking that more constrained kind of box of things to work with.
So it makes us more human. I think that even maybe not for artists, but in general for enjoyable, true lifestyle for every person, it is necessary to visit nature places, because as far as I know, there is a huge problem in Japan in this aspect because of their robotization, electronization, if this word exists. Our technological progress spreads very tight in our lives, and we almost hour full with it. And I think that it is even important to spend some time, for example, weekends, or if you live in the place which is surrounded by nature, it is even more cool. It makes us more quiet and stress resistant.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only reason why I said that I don't know if it's necessary is just because I've met people that they tell me at least that they don't get that sensation from being in nature. But I agree with you very much. I think that people have built both a lot of literal, physical, as well as psychological and mental barriers between them and nature. Even the idea that we have civilization versus wilderness, that kind of split where we put here's where the people live and here's where everything else is a little bit naive to how, or I don't know if naive, it shows a bit of ignorance, I think, to how connected we are to everything around us. Just because I put up a concrete wall between me and outside doesn't mean that I'm not part of nature anymore. So I think I agree with you a lot that going for a walk, even in the woods, can kind of reset you a little bit and give you that frame of reference that you're connected to everything as well. And there's some beauty to that things aren't as rigid and regimented as it may appear when you're living in a home with right angles everywhere and built out of wood and concrete. It feels, it may be eventually feel natural if you're living in it all the time, but it helps to step outside of that and see that you're really living in kind of a bubble like that. So I agree with you there, but I relate to that. I know that there are some people that don't relate to that. So
I want to ask you, what do you think about all this NFT trend, and what do you think about future of digital art?
I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm excited to see that creators are gaining more control over what they create and are able to not only achieve some monetary compensation, but just recognition and for their work and how it influences the community around them. And I think that the implementation of kind of a blockchain technology to see how it's going to be on this network and when it's going on, and it creates an ability for the creators to have more control over their work, which I think is very exciting. But how that develops, that's anybody's guess. I'm kind of along for the ride to see what happens, and I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm happy that things are moving this way. But where it's going to go is anybody's guess. I feel like I don't know if you guys have a more in-depth thoughts on that, because I don't know. I only started creating digital art probably 2 years ago, so I'm not as deep in the digital art world as a lot of other people are. So I'd be interested in getting your take on that very same question, kind of where you think this may be going and what the implications of it may be. And yeah, if you see it being mostly visual, is it going to be music? Is it going to be like, I don't know, like, is there some branch that you see growing more than another? Or, I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, I try thinking about how to connect NFT with music. I think it's very cool possibilities for musicians. This NFT maybe some music video with sell original music work also.
I think that it is now only at the beginning of its trend. So I not much time ago, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, see in the Elon Musk Twitter account, I saw he posted some tweet with musical video, and then so for me, for example, Elon Musk is like idol. He makes trend to anything. So his word he pronounce has some value, and I see that it's only a question of time how fast this trend will grow. Or maybe I'm wrong, and this is already spread in the world widely. For example, yes, both you are musicians, and it's a really good idea to combine musical art and visual art. I think it's even more. It's like a movie. And you can feel more deeper artist or musician. No, it's not important to understand what he or she wants to bring to you, to our soul, and so it's even cooler than simply a picture or piece on the canvas or something visual. So I think that it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely, it's a very beginning, and where it goes from there, who knows? I wonder also if a lot of people begin really running into the NFTs, especially a lot of big, not big, but really, like if the NFT artwork that's selling at these auctions for millions of dollars and just astronomical amounts of money, I wonder if that will begin to get a lot of artists who had originally started creating physical works to really funnel into that space and reinforce it. And if that's going to have a reverse effect where suddenly you'll get actual physical artwork will become the rarity rather than the digital thing. So like an example, like I posted a few NFTs that were of oil paintings that I had done in the past, and I had taken them and tried to edit them a little bit to make them into, try to get the actual texture and shadow on them that were representative of the oil. But I wonder if a real influential artist were to start doing that, does the digital version become less valuable than the physical one over time? How does it relate to each other? I think that's interesting too, that it may suddenly become that the physical artwork is the really rare thing that increases the physical art's value because of the NFTs, and they kind of play off of each other. I think that could be an interesting way that it could evolve, but again, it's pure speculation. I have no idea where this is going to go. So yeah.
Artyom, do you have any question? All right.
No, I haven't questions because Ryan give very complete answers.
Well, I'm sorry that I rushed through all your questions too quickly there, then.
I have several.
Yeah, can I ask a few of you guys then? I'd like to turn around a few of the same questions to you guys, and I wonder what inspires you guys in your artwork, and then also what brought you guys to want to make this podcast and this stream? Was it to gain inspiration for yourselves? Was it to try to create? I don't know. I'm just totally throwing out ideas there. I'd like to know kind of your thought process behind this and what gets you guys up in the morning and working, and yeah.
As for me, at first I like working with video and with the sound, and I want to create something would be useful for other guys, other artists, because I am artist and I know how it need to create some useful for other artists and help each other. This first reason why we started this podcasts, and also many cool good peoples we meet in these podcasts. It's a very interesting conversation with all guys.
Right, that's great. Yeah, and I definitely appreciate the idea of putting information out there for people as well. I think that these kind of things definitely help. Something that is definitely a struggle for anybody starting in any creative field is finding a mentor or finding a source to learn from if they don't have a mentor. And so things like this that can give you exposure to a lot of different people is, I think, very valuable. So yeah, thank you.
And I want to add that, of course, first part which Artyom said, really important. And for example, for myself, it is really interesting, and I even couldn't imagine how it is amazing to communicate with people who are situated in other countries, in the opposite side of the earth. For example, as for me, I hadn't this possibility. Of course, I tried to communicate such sites like Interpels or other with language exchange, but it is more interesting to speak with people who are in the same boat as you, and to get to know their opinion. Of course, everybody has own baggage of experience, and it is valuable. In general, it's not bad.
No, you're. I think you're very right. The fact that we can have this conversation right now it's something new that you could not have done even a few years ago like this easily. So I think it's massively important, and it does, again, kind of speaks to that same idea that I was talking about before, these kind of artificial barriers that built up between us and nature. It's got artificial barriers here too as well. Well, geographic barriers, and there's oceans in between us, I suppose. But this helps people spread some ideas and, again, gain some inspiration. So very helpful. Yeah.
Ryan, also want to ask, do you have something to show us, or maybe some your works or the process? Of course, it's not necessary as you like.
Sure. Yeah, no, I actually pulled a few things up. I have it sitting aside if you want me to share my screen here. I have a few pulled up, so see if I can share my screen here. Right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, there is a snake.
All right. Yes. All right. This is the one I was actually working on just before we got on the call here. So if you look at, this isn't one of the photos that I took. This is a photo that I sourced from online, but it's of a snake the same type of snake that I found just a week ago or so around here. It's called the Eastern garter snake. And again, nature is something that inspires me a lot. So this is kind of shows a bit of how I've been doing my process. So I'll take an image to begin with and use it as a reference. So this was the initial image I have. Mm-hmm. And this program I'm working in is called Gravit Designer as well. Mm-hmm. There's no particular reason why I got that. It was just a cheaper option than Illustrator at the time. So, but I'll take an image like this, and then I like to adjust the visibility on it. So I'll do like a 50% opacity, so I can kind of look through it a little bit. And I do a lot of my work thinking about how I used to sketch things. So I would always start from the outside in. I would always do the outer shape. And a lot of the time I would do really brushy, broad strokes to kind of get a very, very rough outline. And then I'd go back with a pencil and get my eraser and then create the actual lines I want. So that's something I really like about some of these digital programs, in that I can create a line, and then if I make a line like here, I can, if I want to follow a shape, and then afterwards, if I don't like exactly how that line came out, all I can do is just slide that around, or I can adjust how the angle is, or can turn it into a different point so it's not a smooth curve. And it just gives a lot of freedom for me to create these shapes in a single line, so that I'm not going through this process that's so ingrained in my head of doing these scratchy kind of outlines and then subtracting all the shape away to get something. So what I'll do is I'll create the outline of the snake first. So here's like an outline, and then I'll go in and try to put individual shapes on top of that. So for this case, the snake, it's a lot of the scales. So you see like an individual scale here. I'll try to first do an outline of the scale. So like these, and you can, if you look at any individual shape here, you'll see that it's composed of these different points that I've adjusted the curves on to try to follow the kind of shape of each individual piece. Mm-hmm. And then what I will try to do then is, sorry, give me 1 second. I'll take a fill and I'll adjust my colors to figure out where there's going to be a focal point, where light might be hitting the scale, what's the shadow going to look like at the bottom. And that gives me a lot of freedom to adjust the shadows and the shapes on each individual piece I have here. So if I don't like how that scale looks, for example, and I want it to be darker down here, all I'd have to do is pick my shade up here and I can slide it around and adjust my color however I see fit. And then after I'm satisfied with kind of my base colors, then I'll typically go in and I'll add an additional layer on top of that. And that additional layer, I'll try to, again, make a little bit see-through so that you can see these colors underneath. But that top layer is usually a texture. So I'll go online once I'm done making all these shapes, and I'll try to find a texture that I like, that I think represents the shade or the luster or the way that a scale might shine in the light, and then try to adjust that for all these shapes. So it's a slow process. It's definitely not the most efficient one, but it's what I work with, and that's kind of what my process has been so far. So this is a piece that's in the works. This one is a more recent one that I finished. So this is a weird one, but I did an overlay of 2 separate paintings, and those 2 paintings were, I pull it up here. Oops. I'll pull up. So there was this painting, the fresco that was attempted to be restored in Italy, I think it was Italy, or maybe it was Spain. It was this fresco, and it was on the news several years ago. There's this fresco in a paint, or I think it was a church in Spain. But then there was a restoration attempt where they ended up with this painting. Gained a lot of ire from the media. So I thought that was a famous, fun painting. And then Salvatore. And then this is another extremely, extremely famous painting, the Salvator Mundi, which is the most expensive painting that ever sold in the world. It's thought to be by Leonardo da Vinci, or his studio at least. So I kind of took those 2 paintings together and overlaid them. So you can see that the hand here is coming from the Salvator Mundi. And then the face, obviously, here is coming into the face of this. And the name that was given to this one affectionately was Ecce Mono. So Ecce Homo is the name of the original one, is Behold the Man. So people started calling this one Eche Mono because they thought that his face looked like a monkey. So they like, behold the monkey. So I named this Salvatore Mono. So I don't know. It was just a fun little piece for me, I guess, but it's the same idea of where I'm going over a shape, and then you can see how there's a fill in here. So this is what my fill was, all these different colors I chose, and this is where I wanted the light to focus. And here's like a little bit of pink. So it's the idea of like blood under the skin, making a shadow, or so it's kind of building in layers for me is how I do a lot of it. And then on top of that, I had a texture that was meant to be just skin. So there's a little bit of texture on here. You can see if you zoom in a little bit more. But yeah, so that's kind of what my style is at the moment. It's kind of working outside in, doing a border, creating a lot of the shading for that shape, and then finally trying to find a texture that can kind of make it look a little bit 3D, but also have this very clear kind of flat look to it. So it almost looks like it's, I don't know, like construction paper that's been cut out and layered on top of each other to make a semi 3-dimensional image to it. So yeah, that's where I am right now with this. And I'm just testing out new overlays, and this program has lots of different effects that I can add in, like drop shadows. So I can do a shadow behind a shape, or I can add a shadow on the inside. There's all these different kind of things. I can do a vignette on a shape, or I can change the colors, or there's lots of different things that I still need to explore and see how, if I like them or if I don't. But again, it just kind of talks that iterative process of trying things, and if they work for you and you like them, then keep them, and if they don't, then try something else. So
do you have some work with oil, if it possible?
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see very well here. Here's one of the oil ones. I don't know if that's very good in the light, but yeah, these ones were yeah, I hardly remember actually making these. These were made a long time ago, like I think probably like 20 somewhere between 2013 2015. So I was young, I was a teenager when I made these. But yeah, no, again, very much just testing out different mediums and seeing what I like. And these are other ones that, again, I was talking to there. I made them at the time and I hated them. And now I pulled them out. I found them just a month ago and I was looking at them and it was kind of new eyes and like, okay, it's not as terrible as I remember when I was, when I was a kid. So, I don't know, tastes change with time and your taste will change with time as well. I think is what I learned from that one.
Mm-hmm. What is the material of this painting? It's cardboard or? Yeah,
this one. It was just it's a piece of just like poster board that I had. It was just like a scrap. Yeah, it's not even canvas or anything. So I don't know how well it will hold up in time. But yeah, it's just a hard piece of poster board that I had extra pieces of and just used that in lieu of a canvas. So
very good. And at the moment you don't draw with oil or you continue?
I actually haven't made an oil painting in several years now. I haven't painted in probably a year or so. I've been much more focused on the digital stuff over the last year. But I did very recently, I visited my family and I had some old oil paints stashed away. So just last week, I brought them back to my apartment now. So I'll probably open them up again. I need to find a time to do that and figure out what I want to paint. But it's something I'll probably go back around to. Like I mentioned before, I'd forgotten that I made these and I kind of like them now. So I figure that I might give them another shot, but I haven't made any concrete plans to start making another piece yet until I finish at least the snake. So
And how do you think? What are the difference between feelings when you draw on physical surface and in digital? What is the difference in feelings, in understanding? How do you think, or what are inside you during this process?
Right. At least for me right now, the speed that I can work in the digital art is very slow, especially compared to how quickly I can sketch something. So for the digital artwork, I think that I'm more inclined to make something in that if it's an image that I've already either drawn out myself or it's something that I have in my head that I have a fairly clear idea of what I want to represent. But I find that the sketching and drawing is much more effective for like flash moments of inspiration, or if something comes to me in the moment, it's way more effective for me to sketch it down, because it's not important for me to get all the details in that sketch. It's to get the idea, and I can have that idea in my sketchbook that I can look at later, and that will be the trigger for me to remember the rest of whatever I wanted to create, and that can go into the digital art. So I think that that's probably part of that I've started with sketching, so it's the most familiar to me. But it's also, like you said, it's physical. You can feel it much more. So you can, if it's anger or angst or like anxiety that you want to put into the piece, you can put more pressure on the pencil or the paint, or you can put more paint on. It's a more tactile thing. So that helps convey a bit more the emotion that I think is more difficult, at least for me, to convey in the digital art. At the same time, I don't feel like I have as much control, like I mentioned before, to adjust all those lines precisely how I want them and create a shadow that's precisely this thick or whatever it may be. So even if my digital artwork isn't photorealistic in any way, by any means, it's measured what I'm doing, and where I put a line is intentional, where it's going. Whereas with a sketch, I feel like I have, in a physical piece, you have more leeway to make mistakes, or not even mistakes, just be less precise with things. And I think that can be very frustrating for a lot of people. It's definitely very frustrating for me still when I work with paint, that if I make something, like if I paint with oil and I don't like how it turned out, it's like, okay, well, get your palette knife and start scraping then, and so you might get all of it off. There's not that same safety net that you have with like a graphic art, that you can just hit delete and the whole thing is gone. You don't need to worry about bits of your oil that have seeped into your canvas. So that can be frustrating. It's frustrating for me, but it's something that I think also contributes to a final piece that looks more natural. Like you can tell that a person made it when there's globs of paint in one spot, or there's just it's not a perfect line or something like that. So there's definitely a difference. And I think that there's applications for the physical versus the digital art. They have different emotions that they can convey in that way.
Yeah, the main difference in physical art is you can't press Ctrl-Z.
Yeah, exactly.
Also want to ask you, what book influenced on you the most of all? Do you have this book, or maybe it can be not the book, but some event in your life, or song, or anything you choose.
Right. I'm trying to think. I can think of one book that it sticks out to me. It's not something that I think about all the time, but it's a physical book that I'm going to hold on to for the rest of my life. I feel like is it's a copy of a book by Jacques Cousteau, and he's if you've ever heard of him, he's a gentleman that he's kind of credited with pioneering scuba diving, and the idea of or not the very first pioneer of scuba diving, but really influential in developing scuba diving into what it is today. And he wrote a book called it's called The Silent World, and it's all about his dives. And I don't know why I thought it was so interesting. It's just it kind of, I really enjoy people that have a passion for a really specific topic, and it's a beautiful book. It was printed back in the 50s, but they have all these old photos in it of like their dives underwater, and it's his writings about how this whole brand new world that at the time was really alien to everybody else in the world other than him and his few diving buddies that were able to get down to these depths and look at these reefs and everything. And it plays into, again, my appreciation for nature. And I don't have the ability to scuba dive here in the middle of the continent, so I'm not near any ocean. So I thought it was a really interesting book to me, and I found it very, very fun to read, just in hearing about somebody who's so passionate about something and they've dedicated their life to this craft, to hear them talk about it with such love and desire to spread it with somebody else. That was a great book for me. So I'm going to hold on to that one. It's not something that I've reread since reading it initially, but it's something that I still think about and I hold on to and I value. So
I'm sorry if I missed. So you weren't scuba diving?
I have done it before, but when the very first time I read the book, it was a gift to me, and I have scuba dived since reading the book. I learned how to do it, and I took lessons in the continental United States. So they ended up, instead of scuba diving in an ocean or a lake, they had an old quarry that they filled up with water. And it was this freezing cold quarry, and they would have us do training lessons in there. But I eventually did get my license to scuba dive. But the book was just interesting to me, just to hear someone go into their passion so deeply and something that they had dedicated their life to. And just, it was very clear that, the work itself was meant to be kind of a magnum opus, I thought, for him, of culminating his love for the ocean to share it to other people who may not be able to experience it themselves and really weren't able to experience it for themselves before him, and all the innovations and that he had made into the field. So, yeah.
Okay, Artyom, do you have questions?
No.
And okay,
that means I did a good job answering, right?
Okay, what can you recommend or advise, or maybe several sentence, motivational sentence for those who are listening to us or who will listen? Some words, so to the listeners in general.
Sure. I suppose just if you enjoy creating enjoy creating or whatever it may be, if it's photography or artwork or music, and you want to develop that skill, I think that it benefits you to share it with other people. Whether that means you're sharing it like you or I might do on like NFT Showroom and try to sell their work, or if it's just posting it on Instagram for your friends or showing it to a family member, I think that it's helpful to see how what you're trying to convey is actually coming across to people, because that informs not only how you can adjust what you make in the future, or kind of how you want to develop your art from there. Because if you're only creating artwork and keeping it to yourself, I think that you can kind of get in an echo chamber of what you think may be really great, and you may be missing inspiration from a lot of other people. So I just encourage you to share with others, and don't be discouraged if people don't like it, because there are people that do like it as well. I feel like people tend to be a lot more vocal for things that they don't like than what they do. So don't be discouraged necessarily if you don't get the reaction that you may have been anticipating or hoping for. Everything's an iterative process, and we're all learning as we go, I think.
I would like to pronounce your Twitter. Your Twitter is I love one coffee, one as number. So that's it. I thoroughly recommend everybody to follow this talented musician, artist, photographer even, and maybe just a lover of nature. And so I really enjoyed our conversation. It's inspirable, and it's always interesting, without exceptions, to listen to somebody's life way. So, and I want to ask also Artyom. Artyom, do you want to play guitar or no? You're tired? So acoustic, not guitar, not electric. Artyom, what is the key will be?
But simple in C major.
Okay. Artyom, can I support you with accompaniment, or you will play by yourself?
Yeah, I play accompaniment and you play solo.
So it's just improvisation. We will see how it will be.
All right. Let's see.
Okay.
It's pretty jazzy, and I have a few knowledge of music, and it's.
I like it. It's nice.
It's an honor for me to be accompaniment for Artyom.
I like it. No, you guys improvise well together. I like it.
Thank you.
So I thoroughly recommend to follow this man. I will repeat, his Twitter is I love one coffee, and he is a photographer, musician, and artist, all in one man. It is really cool. So let's finish, guys.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. Yeah, it's great to talk about it. Great to meet both of you. Great to talk to you both. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Have a good one, guys.